Welcome to Keiser Voices, the story of success, brought to you by Keiser University Graduate School, here where the academic world meets personal triumph. Join us today as we dive into the captivating tales of success.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Keiser Voices, and we are continuing our celebration of Women's History Month. We're excited for today's conversation. It's one that I don't feel that we focus on enough, and that's women in STEM, the challenges, the wins, and everything that falls in between. And we'll probably even define STEM in case there's any confusion or unsurety about what that is. But first, let me introduce our fabulous guest today. Joining us once again is Dr. Robin Cash. And also joining us, and new to the podcast, is Professor Vanessa White. Ladies, thank you for joining us.
And thanks for having us.
Nice to be here.
So I think, can we start with a quick definition of what's STEM? Dr. Cash, I don't know if you want to kick us off, but what's STEM?
Well, I'm glad you say STEM. STEM is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And here recently, they've added the A for STEAM. And I'm very strongly for remaining a STEM person.
Yes, we don't want that arts in there.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with the arts, but...
Absolutely not. I have a very artsy daughter who does have a very technical mind, but I think there's something to be said about why that happened, but I don't know all the data around that. But I'm glad we're still focusing on the strictly the STEM aspect of it.
And that's surprising because my daughter, she's very artsy. She's into fashion, so they're like totally opposite.
There you go. See.
I think that's a whole other podcast that we're going to have to get into with that too, because I don't know the change either. I do agree arts are important, but I'm with you guys. I don't categorize them in the same capacity. So that kind of leads me to my very first true question for you guys. And Professor White, if you don't mind me picking on you first.
Okay.
What letter of STEM do you work in, or is your specialty, and how did you get started there?
I'm a little bit different because I started off as a math major. I graduated in math, and then I took some engineering courses and fell in love with some engineering. And then I have to learn tech because tech goes with everything. So I'm everything but S. I guess I'm theme.
And Dr. Cash?
Well, my true love was mathematics. And I say this because I remember I don't know that we had these anymore, but I took a California achievement test which all elementary school students took. That's dating myself. And I scored 100% in math. And at that time, it was like a puzzle to me. Everything just made sense. Now, I was no savant, but certainly any subject that was introduced, the pieces fit together. So I believe that was for me, the math part. But then the question to Vanessa's point, I always ask the question, why? And it's interesting, even with math, but why? So it's the way my brain was formed. And so it's stayed with me that way my whole life.
And that's a lot of the engineering. The engineering is problem solving. So
that's right.
You have to know everything to make a correct answer.
And Vanessa, that's really good because when I was younger, I didn't understand or realize why I was wanting to know why, but it is the problem solving.
I know we've kind of had this conversation with you before, Dr. Cash, when you've spoken to the students, but one of the conversation is we don't see enough women in STEM. We just don't see it. Did you ladies face any challenges both in your career and your studies along the way that you would be willing to share with us?
I didn't have any. My experience, my dad was a math teacher, and he saw the potential in me at a very young age. So I have never had any challenges as far as I never male, female, I just love the challenge in the math. So I didn't have any really obstacles as far as me being a woman.
Well, and that's really a blessing, honestly, because
Mhm.
I feel two things that come top of mind when I think about it. Going back to just not being challenged in school. And by the time I was in fourth grade or fifth grade, I was correcting papers, and that followed through middle school. And so when you have a student who you have no curriculum in your everyday curriculum that challenges that student, it should be on the incumbent upon the instructor to move that student to something else instead of doing their job. And so I did do a lot of correction of papers. And then, of course, going to U of M, I went to the University of Michigan, and I was a little bit of an anomaly. And so it always seems that to me, I always questioned if I was really doing the right thing because no one else seemed to think in college at university level that I was in the right field. I always had that suggestion to do something different. And so, yeah, I don't know. But again, the people that you hear in your head from elementary school and your family members, uh, and I sent you a picture of a little book that I said, Awkward to Awesome, Discovering Your STEAM Ability. And when I don't have one, I don't think here in Florida, but I'm going to send you one, Heather, because it really tells my tale. It really does.
I'm looking forward then to receiving that. And then we'll also share a link for it in the description if you guys are interested in reading this book that Dr. Cash is talking about as well.
Yeah.
I know one of the conversations and that is had is it's hard to picture yourself in an industry or a field when you're not seeing people who look like you. And that can be said on like a couple of different ways, whether we're talking about women. Last month we celebrated Black History Month. In the fall, we celebrate Hispanic Heritage. And it's always hard for individuals to say, I can do that because I saw so and so do that. Was that something that you guys struggled with? I know you said like math, you were just always interested in math. Was that at all part of any of the challenges you guys faced that, I didn't see somebody who looked like me and it kind of made it harder, but I still pushed through?
Yes, that's one of my motivations because I want somebody to see, because I went to Louisiana Tech and I didn't see anybody that looked like me. However, the person that motivated me, I was taking a math class and her name was Dr. Maxfield. And she came in and she taught math in a totally different way. And it really made me fall in love with math and statistics. So I went back to school, and one of my drives is to finish school so I can be an example for somebody that's coming. Because if I don't finish it, what happens, the person behind me may feel like they're not motivated to finish. So one of my driving forces is to really help the people that are coming behind me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. It's hard for me to answer that question because I was never exposed to a African American professor at all through any of my academic studies, undergraduate or either of my graduate degrees. And certainly in terms of women, I had one, she was a TA. And I don't think that, so no, you don't really think you could, it wasn't about whether or not I thought I could, had to have someone like me, that looked like me that I could identify. What I really wanted was that person who believed in me. And fortunately, I had a few of those professors that believed in me. While they were men, they still, once they believe in you, it gives you even more, it gives you the additional drive to say, if that person sees the potential in me, it must be real.
And
because
that's
so
what,
many people are naysayers.
and I agree. And that's what it is. Someone has to actually, and I had an experience with a couple of instructors that actually saw more in me than I saw in myself. And they
Right.
actually pushed me and told me I could do it. And once they gave me that push and that initiative, and you actually have to put your foot out there and start. And it actually, that right there is the motivation factor. Having somebody that sees something in you and they push you to that next level.
Right. I
Have you
agree.
guys in your tenures as faculties or even in your educational pursuits, have you seen a shift in that passion from the female students that are like, are they now becoming more interested in STEM now that people are talking about it more? Like, have we seen a change from that, or is it still heavily male dominated?
I personally think it's heavily male dominated, and I think there is still a shutdown engine. And I do believe one of the most disappointing things for me is, and all the people that I have inspired to be engineers, and I had a really lovely story of a woman who is now a vice president of a company. They shift from strictly technical to something of utilizing their technical capability to problem solve in a soft skills space. And that's really disappointing to me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to be an engineer anymore, but I'm going to use those analytical um, skills and my capability to do something in the soft skills. So they're in HR, or they're in project management, or they're in, they shift to public relations, or they shift to some other industry that's not developing technical, they're not innovating in that way in the technology space. That's extraordinarily disappointing to me.
Yes, it is.
I think STEM is probably one of those industries or fields or topics, however you want to phrase it, that as soon as we say introduce the word technology, things are always changing. My son does not learn math the same way I learn math, and you would think a formula would stay true, but we're seeing like these shifts in this field, and it's coming fast and it's coming constant. How can you stay curious and motivated when there's constant changings like that?
You really have to read and attend conferences, be part of groups, and talk to people in like that's like you that know more than you. So it's a evolving, it's ever evolving. You're always talking to somebody, you're always reading. To like for example, AI. AI is the biggest, newest thing. So in order to, you have to learn it. And sometimes you don't want to learn new things, but in order to stay on top, and the students are coming in with prior knowledge of AI is out there and they're using it for a whole lot of different things. So you have to stay abreast of what's going on. You have to talk to you have to talk to students as well, because they know more than you do sometimes as far as the new technology.
So when we look at the future of STEM, how can we help, further, women pursuing these fields, the science, the technology, the engineering, the math? Do you have advice that you would give to, younger ladies who are trying to decide what's that next step for me? Where should I focus? Or is this even right for me? Do you have any advice that you would give to them, Dr. Cash?
I have two things that I think of top of mind. One, math is a language, and learn the language and don't be discouraged. I spent 18 years learning English, all through high school. And then when I got to university, I realized that I still had things to learn. So math is a language, and you have to be persistent and learn that language, because that is your toolbox. That is your toolbox. And then the thing that I wish that I had done and I didn't do is expose my daughters, who both should have been engineers as their first degree. I wish I had exposed them to the various opportunities in the technology engineering, because it's not just about automotive or engines and vehicles or airplanes. There's so many, from cosmetics to products that we use like Procter and Gamble to chairs and forks and plates. There are all kinds, just name it. The way we manufacture paper. There's so many things that could pull into the creative part, but you still require the technology of manufacturing and how to get that done. And so to me, don't etch out technology and engineering because you don't want to make a car or a plane. Just think about anything you use, any tool, from your makeup brush to your chair. Is there anything that's interesting to you? And then look at it from that perspective.
Professor White?
I think that's very good. That's very good because, like you say, math is your foundation. So understand your math. Get with people, get into people that will encourage you. They don't actually have to be math people, but someone you can talk to, because sometimes you're a lone wolf and you need somebody to talk to just to vent to. And also to piggyback on what Dr. Cash was saying, my daughter was majoring in fashion. And she actually took a 3D printing class. And I was amazed. So people don't understand, because the question the student always asks you, what I'm going to do with all this math is everywhere. And you just have to realize, get that foundation and make sure when you go into the STEM area that you pick the area that you're interested in.
Exactly.
For example, I started off in electrical engineering and I was like, what is this? And then I started taking industrial engineering courses. I'm like, oh, I love it. So it's so many different areas out there. So you just have to make sure you're in the area that you're most interested in. Right. And then you will flourish. And then you won't give up because you love it.
Right. You'll find that perseverance because the topics are just so intriguing. I taught a PhD level class on technology transfer, and one of the most interesting things would be some of these talks that I would introduce the students to, shifting their brains about and their ideology, their thought process on how technology is applied. And you would be surprised at what's out there. There are bioagents that are used to make dye, safe ways of making dyes instead of the things that are poisonous and carcinogenic that are natural in nature. And some of the things these students come up because they're biologists or they're chemists or they're blending it with the technology and creating things that we would have never thought of. But it's just they were just very interested in those kinds of topics. So again, I can't impress upon that enough. Reiterating that you need to find something that you have a real passion for.
And Dr. Cash, you just answered your question about STEAM.
Oh,
and why STEAM is included. So
yeah, you're right. But I have a different thought process about the grant and funding for those programs. So.
Ladies, I can't thank you both enough to come on and share a little bit of insights on your perspectives and your experiences in the world of STEM. Thank you both so much. Honestly, we can't thank you enough because I know we can go on for a long time. Yes. I have my own list of questions. I love math. I'm a big math fan. I use math in everything that I do, even here in student services. So I appreciate what you guys are doing to further the field and keeping students engaged and using their math skills at the very least. So thank you, ladies, so much.
Oh, this was nice.
I'd like to say one other thing, though. When I said math is a language, let me just go a little bit deeper. Statistics is a subset of that language. That's very difficult, Professor White, to really speak well when you fail to accept the null or something like that.
The hypothesis test.
So yeah, but it's still very intriguing. So and thank you for having us. Listen,
yes.
If I personally can influence, impact, or persuade one person, even two in my whole lifetime that changes the trajectory of their life. And it's a bonus if it's a girl. It's an extra bonus if it's an underrepresented minority, a Hispanic lady, an African American lady, a lady that typically wouldn't get the opportunity to be educated, but now they're excelling because of something that I've done to inspire them. Then I think I've done a good job with what God has given me. And I don't know if I can say that, but that's really how I feel.
Yes, and I agree. And one thing that just slipped my mind. One thing I would like to say is that never give up. If you want something, go for it. Because a lot of times you just don't have the background for it. You just don't have the foundation. If you don't have the foundation, go get that foundation. If you have a foundation, you can make anything. Right. So that's what I would tell anybody. Just persevere. Don't give up. If you have an issue, reach out to somebody, because I'm here. Dr. Cash is here.
That's right.
Yes.
Resources. And
because sometimes you just need somebody to vent to, but just persevere and just don't give up.
Thank you guys again so much.
Thank you guys. Let us know if we can do anything else. Let us know.
Yes.
If you guys have enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like, share, subscribe, and follow, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you for journeying with us today on Keiser Voices, the story of success. As we close this chapter, remember, every story has its next page.